2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. How do I teach my sons about healthy sexuality and how to be a good man?
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists.
We're not afraid of your questions.
So bring it.
Brannon, man, it's good to have you back. Sorry we missed you on the last episode.
Yeah, that's all right.
You were busy being Father of the Year, man.
Oh, you know me.
Yeah,
we went to some Braves games. They were playing the Dodgers. It was sweet. I'm not even a Braves fan, but just being there with Reed was awesome. So.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that's really cool that you guys go and do that kind of stuff. And I know that's stuff that'll pretty much last his entire life with those memories that you make there.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm glad to have you back. We have a really kind of a cool show today. We have a guest today who is going to be able to speak to our question with us, and really grateful to have him come on. His name is Farron Dozier. He's a retired Army officer. So we're going to have kind of a veteran's perspective on this topic of masculinity and teaching our kids about sex. He's an advocate for arthritis, and I'm going to probably say this wrong, but rhabdomyolysis and sickle cell disease. But the real reason why we're glad to have him on is because he is a father and a grandpa, and he has passion for masculinity, and he looks at things from a Christian perspective. He has been an internet, radio, and TV host for 11 years. And so, Farron, we're happy to have you on today.
Hang on here. Did you say he's a grandpa?
That's what...
Farron, you look like you're 30 years old. How'd you pull that off?
Well, thank you.
How many grandkids do you have?
Just one.
Just one.
Just one now.
Okay.
Yeah, just one.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say you look way too young to be a grandfather.
I'm 51, man. I'm 51.
Yeah, you're definitely aging better than both Brannon and I are, for sure.
Yes.
So Farron, welcome, man. We're glad to have you on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your show today.
You bet. We're just gonna throw this question out here, and we'll kind of get busy just having a discussion. Okay. So, the question is this: I've been working my own recovery for sexual addiction for about 3 years now. As a father of 2 sons, I want to make sure that I'm doing my job to teach them properly about sex and what it means to be a good man. Any pointers or resources that you have are going to be greatly appreciated. So, good one, right?
Yeah, very good. Actually, some things that I've been researching myself, actually, as I've start to heal myself with my relationship with my dad, and also just me experiencing being what some people call whole and complete, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that whole sexual conversation and teaching about sex, I think it needs to be addressed. And I feel that I could definitely contribute to some, some pieces of my own personal experience, but also what we call empirical truths, where if you just look in life and observe for yourself, like you don't have to Google it, just look in your life and observe, and you could see that maybe that could be something that I could look at or could do some work around. So yeah, I'm very interested.
Farron, what was your, if you don't mind me asking, like what was your personal experience with like being taught about sex and masculinity, like from your dad?
Nothing from my dad. Nothing from my dad. What I learned about sex was from music, and my uncles, and playing hide and go get it when they turned from hide and go seek. And I'm talking about 7, 8 years old. Like, what is a 7-year-old, 8-year-old doing playing hide and go get it?
Right.
Like, that doesn't make sense. But as children, you don't know any better. Like, you learn it, like I said, from your environment,
right,
and rarely from our parents. And I think that's where it starts. Is how do we talk about having our men talk about sex with their children? Like, it has to come from there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think that generation a little bit, and I don't know your personal story and what was going on with your dad or anything like that, but there was this disconnect. There was this disconnect of, hey, we don't talk about sex. We don't do that. We don't go there. And so like, let's just avoid it. And let's be proper and avoid sex. And in the meantime, the kids are doing like what you're talking about. Like they're off, looking at Playboys under their neighbor's dad's bed, or they're watching music videos, and that's how they're getting this whole education about sex and masculinity.
Yeah.
I remember my mom also in probably either junior high or so saying that you learn about it in class, like health class or something like that. So yeah.
Don't ask me about it. Go to health class.
Yeah, I would exactly. I would bet that if we were to poll most of the men listening to us right now, the vast majority of them would say that they didn't have for sure their father very much involved in the educational part of how they got things. They probably got it through friends or uncles or videos or magazines. I had a client one time tell me that his dad had his arm twisted by their mom. He said, "Hey, you got to go have the talk with the talk, right? It's a one-time talk." And so he took his son out to the back shed and he pulled out one of those electrical sockets and a light bulb, and he screwed it in. And when the light popped on, he said, "That's how it works, son."
Oh, wow.
And it's like, okay. So what's that boy going to learn? And yet the truth is that we live in a society where if we see it in the media, we're being taught one way.
Yes.
If we're stumbling into pornography, which most of us as boys are stumbling into pretty early at a pretty young age, we're getting an education from everywhere, from the place where it would be most important to get it.
Yeah. And for me, like my parents weren't married. And so my grandparents actually raised me from 2 to 8. So that's why I say I live with my uncles and all that. And so they were teenagers back then. So again, you're talking about the music, the old R&B songs and all that stuff that talk about sex with the hidden subliminal messages and things like that. So my dad really, I missed out with him from 7, 8 till about 15. But I did have stepfathers. My mom married my middle sister's dad, and he did his best to parent me. And I still acknowledge him for that today. And then my current stepfather has been with us since I was 11. And he has done a great job as parenting. But again, when you understand being a male, you still look for that biological father. Like there is that natural thing that I know you're my stepdad, but where is my dad? And that was going on in my head the whole time.
Yeah. There was I think there's no way around that, And that's not to knock on step parents or this. Like, step parents to me are some of the most selfless people out there. But there's no way around that, in that a little boy wants his dad to be connected to him. And that there was a poll that was taken, and a couple of answers came out. One was, I really don't want my parents to talk with me about sex. And then another answer that teenagers gave was, of anybody that I would want to talk or educate me about sex, it would be my parents. Mm-hmm. So on one hand, it's like, I don't want to talk to you about sex. I don't want that, but I really want you to educate me about sex. And it seems conflicting. And I think that's what's hard for parents sometimes, is there's that awkwardness of uncomfortableness of addressing the topic. Yet our sons, it's healthy for them to have that trust and connection with their dad, to be able to have those types of conversations.
Yeah. And one thing really that I've learned about myself in this last 10, 11 year healing process is there is a natural break in communication between the child and the dad, and the child and the mom. And when that breaks, it's difficult for us to now speak to our parents because of little minor, emotional traumas, like, oh, I can't talk to my dad because he doesn't. Mine was, my dad doesn't love me. Mm-hmm. Now, a 5-year-old has no idea what it was to be an adult, but that was what my subconscious mind told me.
Right.
With this one little incident with my dad, and from that point on, there was, even though he did pick me up and see me, my subconscious, well, he doesn't love me, because I had proof. So how could you talk to so my second point is, how can you talk to your parent when there's a break in communication? And that natural break happens if you look in your life for that empirical truth. I love my dad, but he got on my nerve.
Yeah.
And that's been since 5. So how do you expect to have those hard conversations when the silent traumas happen at such a young age?
But that what's interesting going through my mind is, I have 2 sons, mm-hmm. and I am in many ways inflicting that silent trauma on them. Like, and I feel like it's unavoidable, But I think as a father, as a masculine figure in their life, it's knowing that is being inflicted. Yeah. Like, my son at times feels unloved by me, even though I love him completely.
Yes.
But it's me being strong enough to be able to say, I know that you're going to be hurt, and I'm still steady. I'm still here. I'm going to show you again and again that I do love you, even when you have those silent traumas come, so that I build that safety, I build that rapport, so we can have hard conversations about sex or anything.
The best song is Cats in the Cradle. If you listen to Cats in the Cradle, when I heard that, I had heard it before, but when I heard that in the relationship of my dad, I was like, wow, that mm-hmm. is the prime example of what happens as a parent to your child. It's a natural. And if, like you said, if you don't understand that and know how to catch it and make those corrections, that space, the sense of belonging and the exclusion experience of being excluded, it just expands. And then you wonder why the child doesn't want to hang out with you or come and talk to you.
Yeah, that's I appreciate what you're saying there. And Farron, if I'm thinking of like what you've shared already with your experience of your own life, you've got kind of this unique way of being able to view this and talk about it, because on one hand, it sounds like you really did get that woundedness, almost abandonment from your father. And we all do. I mean, that happens. Yeah. And now here you are as a father yourself. And you said you've been doing your own healing and you've been trying to figure it out. And it's like, to what Brannon's saying, we are wounding our children, but the key is that we somehow have to figure out how to stay in the game, knowing that we've wounded our children. I'm kind of wondering, like, in the process of your own healing, how have you navigated that with your own children in terms of being able to stay in the game and maintain those relationships, even though they might be pushing you away, or there might be that woundedness that starts to happen? How do you manage that?
So one of the things that I learned early in my early 40s through the education that I took was, as parents, we have concerns for our children, right? We want to make sure that we keep them safe, that nothing that happened to us in our life experiences happens to them. But guess what? That doesn't work, because that's not you. That's that child. And they have their own experience of and what matters to them and what they care about. So what I had to learn to make my correction with my daughter was kind of my oldest one. We're still healing that one. My middle daughter, we've definitely made some space, but my youngest daughter was where I was able to make that correction. And I had to put my concerns aside and listen to what they were worried about. What are you worried about in life? And because what I was worried about was safety and making sure nothing happened to them. They wasn't worried about that. Right. They was worried about how they were being teased in school and what, all that stuff was going on. And I had no idea. So when I was able to set my concerns aside and say, what are you dealing with? Like, what are you dealing with in life? And then you hear, oh my gosh. And then you help. So when you help them in what they're worried about, you will get what you're concerned about because that's where that connection starts to, because you hear children say, you're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. Well, because we put our concerns to raise them and protect them. But a lot of times our concerns aren't their concerns. Mm-hmm. And when you help nourish what they're worried about in life, then you'll get what you want in return, because that's going to build that relationship and that connectedness. But it looks like rebellion and it looks like all these other things because you're trying to protect them and you really can't, because you're focused on what happened to you, whether it was somebody touched you when you were little, so you don't want them to get that experience, like all those things that happen to us that we want to protect our children with. But a lot of times that's not what they're worried about at the time.
Yeah. I think you're hitting on something so important, and it might trigger some parent guilt in some people listening, but it's like yesterday, my son was like crying, like my 6-year-old, because his older brother wouldn't let him come in the fort that he had built, right? And it's like, from my perspective, I was busy with work stuff. I was trying to remodel a house. I was, trying to deal with my wife, and like there's all, and it's like I'm supposed to stop for a minute and listen to how upset you are about this fort thing, but if we want to have hard conversations with our kids, they need to know that we love them. And so it takes some energy and some time to stop, meet them on that level and just say, I see you. I see your pain. It's valid. I love you. I see you.
Yeah. Right? And so when we start to talk about the sex question, right? I really didn't get a hold of that until maybe 48. Because once I started to heal that thing with my dad, and then the abandonment came with my mom, because I was a latchkey kid in 78. So that whole view of a child, again, exclusion, inclusion, those silent traumas are those emotional traumas on the limbic system that we really just brush over. He's shy, but he was just this wild, lively kid.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now he's shy. Like, why is he so quiet? But we don't understand that child. If we don't, like you said, if we don't be honest with the child at their level, then they're going to go in that room and make up a story make up their own script.
All internalized.
That's going to become their truth. And so now your truth and their truth is not going to be the same, because the patience that we don't take as parents, because like you said, I'm doing this, I'm over here, I'm doing this, I'm running a house. And that child is like, why this, why that? Oh, because I said so.
Right.
Oh, well then, okay then. And then they go sit down and then they make up their own story. And usually it's a negative context. So that's going to become their truth. And then now you wonder why, again, you don't have this relationship, and it's very subtle. So when I started to peel that off, and that led me back to my spirituality. And once I got to my spirituality and I started praying and got connected to the Holy Spirit, I got convicted. I literally got convicted of having sex or even the desire, because I saw that it wasn't healthy for me. Like, I thought sex was to be accepted. Right? So my first experience at 17 was with a girl in my neighborhood that we was doing the dry humping with. Right. And then I got older and it was like, come to my house. And then when that happened, I'm like, that's it?
Right.
Right. It was like, this has just been all the hoopla,
All the hype.
all the hype. And then, but I was so hurt because she actually, I had been hurt by her as a child. Quick story. When I moved to my parents at 78, I would go back to my grandparents' house. That's where all my friends were. Well, growing up in the neighborhood, she's your girlfriend one week, and then everybody's dating everybody with these playing house and playing daddy.
Yes.
Right. So that was one of the experiences that was really traumatic for me, because I left that weekend and she was my girlfriend. And then I go back the next weekend and she's dating my other friend. And it's like, wait a minute, like what is going, like, that doesn't make sense. Again, if you don't know or have someone to talk to about that, I internalized that.
Right.
But then when there was an opportunity 10 years later and she wants to see me, I'm like, oh my gosh, she wants me to come see her. And then I had no idea what was going on until that happens. And then it was like I said, at 17 is like, this is whack. And then I never talked to her again.
Right.
Yeah. You have that woundedness happen. I think you're bringing out a really good point here that I want to make sure is clear for our listeners. And what you're saying is that in response to the question of how do you respond to your kids and how do you teach them properly, part of what your process has been to try to get there is to do the work for your own healing, to make sure that you're involved in making sure you're doing the best you can to be the best person you can, to do the healing you can, so that you can be a resource to your children and not let your stuff sort of get in the way of them. And I think that's a really, really important thing that you're bringing out. And I'm wondering, for parents who are listening to this, like, what does that work look like then from the inside out if I want to be a good resource for my kids?
I broke out my life into 3 parts: my ideology, my philosophy, and my theology. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's how I think, how I view life. And then we're spirits. We don't have spirits. We're spirits. So that spiritual being is going to connect to something, whether it's tarot cards or the Bible principles or zodiac signs. So if you understand you have all this going on in your mindset, that equals your attitude. So my ideology, my philosophy, and my theology equals my mindset and my attitude. I say, okay, if that's that, then where do my thoughts come from? Like, why do I think like that? Right. So then I had to go figure out what work can I do to look at my thoughts. Well, guess what? It happened to be a VA class called cognitive behavior.
Oh, interesting.
And so I took that course because when my dad passed away, I went to somebody told me the VA has grievance courses. So I didn't want to live my life hurting for the next 15 years about my relationship with my dad because I missed him. So I took those grievance courses, and then my doctor was like, you want to do some more work? I'm like, yeah, actually, I want to heal with my mom. And so he said, well, I got these cognitive behavior courses. So I took those, and that helped me listen to how I think and where my thoughts come from, right? And then I looked at my philosophy. Like, what do I believe? What did my environment teach me? Well, guess what? Some of the stuff that I learned in my environment, it doesn't fit who I am today. And it doesn't work. Matter of fact, some of the stuff was corrupted information too.
Right.
So then I had to find something in life that I could challenge my beliefs up against for some new beliefs, which was a course called Landmark Education. Landmark Education transformed my life literally. And then I saw, okay, if I'm a spiritual being, what am I going to follow? Well, I grew up in the church, so it brought me right back to the Bible principles. So I started unraveling my life and doing that work and being honest with myself. The cognitive behavior class asked, is that story in your thoughts exaggerated? And I had to think, is that an exaggerated story? Oh my, it is. But in the midst of it, when I was 8, it was like the truth. Mm-hmm. So I want to say to people listening, you've got to find out what you believe and where those beliefs came from and see if they fit you today. Because as we get older and develop, our beliefs change. And sometimes it's okay to be wrong. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay to be like, you know what? I need to go figure this out for myself first. Because there's so much going on. Like Brandon said, you got life happening. And sometimes the things that we learn from our environment to survive life, it corrupts us. And now we want to live life. And then now you battle with surviving life and living life. And those two are two different experiences. When you look at how they show up for you, it's two different experiences.
Yeah. Farron, like I gotta point this out. I love your story and it was ideology, theology, and philosophy.
Yeah.
But I gotta point this out.
Okay.
The thing that you have that I think a lot of parents don't do is humility. Is when that class was offered to you and your dad had just died, it was like, you know what, I'm broken in some ways. I gotta go heal. And through that humility is where you found the Holy Spirit. That's where you've connected to God, which then grounds you and really makes it so that you can resonate in a place where you're a loving, powerful father and blessing the lives of your children. But that starts with that humility. And a lot of parents, they got it all figured out, or they're too busy for their own healing and so they don't stop and work on themselves to actually show up as a parent for their children.
And it's different. I listen to Dr. Miles Monroe, and my mom put me into his teachings. And then as I started to get my spirituality together, my mom was like, "Son, you're doing great, but you're missing something." I'm like, "What's that?" She's like, "You're missing the Holy Spirit," because she saw the landmark education, how it was working.
Yeah.
She saw me seeking the Bible, and there was something in me too. It was like, I like Joel Osteen, but there's something missing there. Like I like the church I go to, but there's something missing there, and it was the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And when I saw that, and she said that, I listened to Dr. Miles' teachings about the Holy Spirit. It was like, wait a minute, I received the Holy Spirit when I was like 16. Like that's what that is.
Yeah.
But again, if you're as a child, that's not what I don't speak in tongues. That's not what that is. I made that up. But for all that time, I had that in my life. And at older age is where I started putting those pieces together. And that literally brought me a level of peace, because I saw that the Bible principles for me and society's views, we already know society's views is corrupted. Like we already know. But then I had to ground myself into those spiritual principles, those Bible principles. And so when I compared the two, I'm like, well, I actually have more peace in these Bible principles than I do with the struggles and the circumstances of society and those millions of different views and reality agreements that they don't really do anything for my life anymore.
Right.
Yeah, you're bringing out a principle that we frequently talk about. Brannon and I do a lot with masculinity and part of like recovery from addiction and things. And one of the principles that we frequently talk about is the necessity for each individual to have their own, we call it the wrestle with God, where there's an ongoing relationship, where there's a wrestle going on to find, as you said, to be curious and question like the connection, the endorsement that we can get from our higher power. And when that happens, that gives us a sense of confidence. And then you can step into those other places you talked about. I like that as well, where you talked about your ideology, your philosophy, and your theology. It's like, okay, the theology might be more than just like what church you go to. It's the wrestle with God. Yeah. But when that starts to be confirmed, then it also helps to lock in place those other things, which are the ideology and the philosophy. And then you can kind of with confidence step in. And if we're talking about relationships with our children, we can now step in being convicted in what we know is true and having kind of followed the journey ourselves. So in a sense, we can join with our children instead of talk at our children.
Exactly. Yeah. And that theology piece, the Bible, the real work is repenting, renewing your heart, renewing your mind. And I believe we all go through that at some point. They say men mature in their 30s and, late 30s or whatever. And I believe that that's where that starts. Because you want to like, okay, I'm tired of living like this.
Yeah.
Like you get tired. And if that goes to a level of hopelessness, then people get tired and they take their life.
Right.
So you have to figure out where you are. But I do believe that at some point we're like, okay, something's got to change. Like, I don't want to live like this anymore.
Right.
And so depending on your where you're rooted from could be determined on how you start to that that healing process or not healing process. Some people never discover. We have men that never discover or unravel their life. My dad didn't figure out his until 68.
Yeah.
You know, when he trusted, he was like, and my dad would say that last year, I never thought I could learn something from my son.
Yep.
Like I never, and that was his acknowledgement to the education and the freedom that he found at 68.
Right.
But I could hear him. I could hear him talk about it when I started doing my work. Like, wait, Dad, what is that? Like, what are you talking about? And he would start to, unravel it, and we would have discussions.
I can imagine. Go ahead, Brandon.
I was just gonna say it's interesting. Like all us little boys, we want affirmation from our dad. We want our dad to say, "Hey, son, you got it. You got what it takes. You're amazing." And it's interesting what you were saying earlier about how things happen and that gap starts to happen of okay, I'm not loved, and now here's more proof that I'm not loved, and the cat's in the cradle starts coming true, and it's like all this stuff. And the reality is our dads don't love us perfectly. And the reality is I don't love my sons perfectly. I hate to say that, but I'm a human, and I will make mistakes, and I will wound them. And we've been wounded by our fathers. And you can go until you're 68 years old and still be, even if your dad's dead, still be like, man, I want that. I want that from dad. I want that from dad.
Exactly.
Or you find it from God.
Exactly.
And you allow, because God's there already loving you. And you allow that to just you allow yourself to just sink into that, and then you don't need it from dad anymore, right?
I'm gonna say this because the honor your father and mother has been something that I've been focused on for about 3 years now, right? And it really impacted me again when my dad passed 2 years ago, but as I started to develop myself and wanting to share my story, like share my testimony, because I saw that when you look in the prison system, you look at teen pregnancy, you look at the murder rates, you look at all these things, and these could be connected to the fatherless ills, mm-hmm. right? And so when the Bible talks about all those different things, it's like, wow, it's mm-hmm. like, could those childhood experiences perpetuate social ills?
Yeah,
and again,
absolutely.
When you look at the empirical truth and you hear people who are in prison and they talk about, man, my dad, I was disappointed in my father or my mother. And it's like, wow, that scripture about honoring your father and mother so you may have long life is a real promise. Yeah. Like when I saw that as a real promise and what it looks like in the world, I was like, hey, God allowed me to experience healing with my dad and my mom and myself. I have a voice in that. And I want to share at least my perspective. So somebody who's listening, and I think what Tyler said earlier, you have to discover it for yourself. We can't tell you what it is. If right. I tell you what it is, you'll be offended. Oh, that's not what that is. But if you could hear and look in your own life and discover your version of that, that is really the piece, because it's like you got balance. When you first learn how to walk, it was a wrap and you've never not learned how to walk. So you got that balance. And I believe when I discovered those things for myself, instead of my parents or my mom trying to point it out to me as I was older, when I found it, it was like, oh, shoot.
Right.
That's what that was. And then it's like, okay, I could work on that. And lastly, your truth will set you free. Not my truth, not Tyler's truth, not Brandon's truth. And that's something I learned from those Bible principles, is that your truth will set you free and your convictions will, and it may not be similar to mine, but if you be honest, when you find your truth, that's where your freedom is at.
That's beautiful, Farron. I as you're talking, I just want to add a story that came to mind as you're kind of mentioning this thing. I happened to serve a mission for my church when I was younger, and for 2 years, and my mission was in Baltimore, Maryland, and and I spent some time in the inner cities of Baltimore, Maryland, and while there, we made some friends with about 10 little boys that that would kind of just come over to our place every other day, and we'd teach them to read out of the Bible, and then we'd play football with them in the parking lot and stuff. And as we got to know these little boys, it actually came to my knowledge that not a single one of the little boys in that group even knew who their father was. And then I'd sit and watch them play, and they'd be reenacting the things that they saw their older brothers doing. They'd be like basically holding their guns sideways and, posing and fronting and getting all sorts of, and I thought to myself, like, man, there's an epidemic in our world right now of the lack of involvement with the right masculinity in the lives of our young men. In fact, that was part of what actually led me to the line of work that I do. Is I was sitting there praying after that experience when I got moved to a different area in Maryland, and I was praying about those little boys, and I almost felt like God convicted me to say, Tyler, like, part of your life mission is to teach men how to be men. We have to do that. We owe it for the sake of our women. We owe it to ourselves to raise our men properly. And there really is a need for good men to be involved and to stay involved, to get in the game instead of being cast to the sideline. And your example just really kind of hit home that's exactly part of right to the root of this question that was asked today is like, how do you get a guy to stay involved? How do you get a guy to stand on the front lines?
And when you say involved, right, I would tell when I was in those relationships, I would say, how can you keep this up in a relationship? Like, because we pretend everything is fine, but at some point you're going to be like, man, do I really want to be in this relationship? Like, this is hard work. Yeah. And if you don't have the information and the knowledge and understanding and the wisdom to apply those, again, I was dealing with abandonment issues with my mom. Yeah. I mean, I had the pain in my chest. I became a liar and a cheater. Mm-hmm. But my friends would say, "Oh man, you're a player. You got 2 girls." I'm like, no, I'm not. I had no idea that I was protecting myself, because when I felt that pain in my chest, and my mind was like, "Oh, she's gonna leave you," mm-hmm. and mm-hmm. so that body sensation is like, okay, so I don't want to feel that pain, so let me go meet somebody else.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. But then when at 40. I realized that came all the way back from an 8-year-old decision about his mother. So when I said I don't trust my mother, I didn't know that was going to equate to women across the board. Like I said, at that age, you have no idea what those key decisions can do to your life.
But what's interesting what you're saying? You're saying like, you don't trust your mother, you don't trust women, so you wouldn't go into like deep relationships, like healthy relationships, but you try to get the next girl.
Yes.
It's like, hey, I want to play this. But that illustrates something, which is this. You guys know the song "Take Me to Church"?
Yeah.
Have you heard that song? Mm-hmm. If you listen to that song, it's like "Take Me to Church." What he's basically saying is like, I don't need God, I don't need anything else. I just need sex. I need women to validate me. So if I get sex, then I'm good.
Yeah.
And sex in and of itself, just sex, that's not vulnerable. But for a man, for a split second, if I get a girl to want me and want to have sex with me, then for a split second it feels like I found God. It's like, wow, I'm enough. This feels great.
Yeah.
But now I don't want to hang in there with you with my masculinity. I just want to use you to feel good enough about myself. And so we when we have these wounds, we try to fill that gap with, if we haven't been educated properly about sex and women and masculinity, we try to fill that gap with femininity, with their sexuality. And then we hurt them, we use them, and we damage ourselves and we damage them. And it's a place where we try to hide and we try to get it, but we can't get it from that.
Sex alone will never reproduce that, because what we're really looking for is deep connection, and deep connection can come through sexuality when there's also an emotional and a spiritual component. But when we are raised and we're wounded and we're too afraid and we're worried about, as you were saying, like not being enough, okay, and I'm going to have another one on the side and another one on the side, so I can always fall into somebody else, so I can feel just good enough, even though I've never really gotten convicted of actually who I am. And the truth is that as men, masculinity was designed, and this is what I think we should be teaching our boys, is that we're designed to show up and offer our strength to somebody, meaning we need to learn how to be vulnerable, and we need to learn how to like be empathetic. We need to learn how to hang through the hard times, and sex can be pretty good too. But we're missing all of that because we're not teaching our boys that that's what a masculine man is. That's the way you show up in a relationship, is you offer your strength instead of taking to get your validation.
When I saw in the Bible that the father is the one who is supposed to be compassionate, I was like, wow. Yeah. Because Landmark taught me, instead of being upset and frustrated and pissed off with my dad, who I said I was going to be was compassionate and gratitude and acknowledgement with my dad. So every time he would say something, yes, I still was frustrated because of our conversation, but I remembered who I said I was going to be with him. So a lot of times we look at what are we going to do about that? But I say you gotta look at who are you going to be about that. Like, we're human beings, not human doings. So we always look at the doing, but if you're doing that frustrated, you're going to experience it being frustrated. So I learned to first is who you're going to be first. If you're going to be calm or you're going to be upset, and because you have a choice. And a lot of people don't realize that. No one can make you mad. No one can make you upset, make you happy. You have a choice, but you have to be taught. You have to get some education to learn that you can, I don't want to say control your emotions, but you can control who you be. And it's a choice. And so when I started seeing how I was with my dad all those for 35 years, because I didn't feel he loved me. And so I treated him as such.
Yep.
And when I saw at 40, like, hey, this guy was 20 years old when I was born. Like, what were you dealing with, Dad? And then I had an opportunity to hear, instead of criticizing him about his life, I actually had an opportunity to space to hear about his life. And then I was like, well, no wonder you act like this, you behave like this, because you have your own issues that you were trying to figure out. And then you had a son, and then you're trying to figure that out. And it was like, wow. So I had a level of compassion and understanding. And then I looked at my life like, well, heck, I'm no different. Matter of fact, I resisted being like you so much that I turned out just like you in my own version. And that was the space where I could be, well, who am I going to be today? Yep. I don't want to be frustrated with you. I don't want to be mad at you. I want to have gratitude. I want to acknowledge you for what you have, what you say to me. I want to give you gratitude. That was a space that I started practicing being with him. And it just, connected us. I'm so glad, because when he passed away, I didn't have any resentment. There was no regrets. We had said everything that I needed to say to him. And there was nothing but pure love. And what I miss is that humanness. That's the part that you probably, that part may never go away. But what I really learned in the Bible from Dr. Miles too was, it's the spirit behind how we think. It's the spirit behind how we talk. And so to honor your father and mother, I think you said, Brannon, you're not going to like your parent every day. You're not going to love your dad every day, but it's how you think about them. It's how you talk about them is where you can hear if there's a healing or there's something, a stronghold or a wedge in the way of that relationship. And that for me has been the biggest thing of how I check myself with my own daughters and how I'm going to share this with my grandson when he's older, about being from a male to a man kind of conversation.
I think that shift happened because you found God's love. That's what I think is like you're being with your dad. You no longer are like trying to get it from him. Yeah. And you're being, and it happens with women a lot. Like, I'm not going to use you for sex and validation anymore. Right. I'm just going to be confident. I know you can smile at me or you can be angry at me. I'm okay. Yeah. And Dad, you can smile at me, you can be angry at me, and I can actually connect to your pain because I know who I am, because I know God loves me. And I think once you have that, then your being shifts.
It was pure forgiveness.
Yes.
And we talk about forgiveness, right? But I could tell you, I experienced pure forgiveness with my parents. And again, that's why I love that passage about honor your father and mother, because when I healed how I thought about them. I love them, but I healed how I thought about them.
Are you saying honoring your father and mother is applying grace and forgiveness to them?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And that's what I'm going to be able to do a sermon at my church on the Father's Day. And so I've got all those different scriptures that talk about honor your father and mother, obey your parents, right? Because you might not want to obey your parent, your father, because he might be telling you to go deliver that crack over there. Right. And that's something that you don't want to follow. That's not cool. That's not. But so you want to obey your parents, the parents who are sourcing you, who are teaching you, who are doing these conversations like we're talking about, giving you that knowledge, and be like me. Don't be like the rappers on TV. Be like me, and I'm going to show you that even in my secrets, you could still be like me, because I'm being this example of what a father is, and I want you to learn that from me. And so all that, gentlemen, has brought me to where I am today, with a level of peace and with myself first, and then now with my 3 daughters, and healing those relationships. And then, like I said, my grandson, who I don't want him to have these issues when he's 4. He's 2 years old.
Right.
In 40 years, he'll be 42. I'll probably be gone. And I don't want him to have these kind of conversations and being lost. And if I can instill these ideas and principles and I say we could teach our youth how to think, not what to think, but how to think. And I think that was what was missing in my life, was you learn it from your environment, and sometimes it's just not good information.
That's beautifully said, Farron. I so appreciate the way that you showed up here today with such authenticity and realness. I mean, your story is going to resonate with a lot of the people listening today, and I'm hoping that the people here are connecting to not just your story, but to the energy that you're bringing as well. Yeah, appreciated you coming on. Could you? How can people find you, Farron?
Very simple. FarronD.com has all of my things that I'm up to, from my sickle cell trait awareness to the arthritis. I'm a 24-year veteran. The rhabdomyolysis was connected to my sickle cell trait, is how I collapsed, and that triggered my depression to wanting to commit suicide, and then having this new view of myself and doing the work. Like that's where it started, that process of me wanting to heal myself, because life was over. And I'm like, I know I'm stronger than this. I know I'm more mentally tough than this, but there was those things that was in the way. And so that was my journey. That military career was great, but it also led me into who I get to be today, with life after my service, which I still now get to contribute life in a different way, not just protecting this country, but like you said, and I agree with you, Tyler, like I believe that as a man, we need to take a responsibility in teaching and sharing. And so FarronD.com has all of my information. I wrote an inspirational read called Life of a 5-Year-Old about my dad, and I believe that that's my next journey. And I wrote 7 of them. I have 7 decisions that I discovered that I want to share as my testimony. And so I believe that those stories will help develop and give a perspective to how we can help start this healing process for men. And so that has everything that you want to find out about me.
Awesome.
FarronD.com. Yeah.
And that's FARRON.
And then D.
Yeah.
.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is done on that site.
Awesome. Thank you, Farron. I could feel your energy. I could feel your healing. Like you talk about a bee, you have that. You're not just doing stuff. You're not fake. You're authentic. This is real. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
I had a great time, and we got to have some more talks, whatever.
Absolutely.
Love to do that.
We have to. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
All right,
we'll see you guys later.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Have you wanted to overcome your sex addiction? Have you wanted to feel more powerful and empowered as a man and understand your masculinity and have more healthy relationships with your spouse, feel more purpose in your life and more connection to God? But you've tried a bunch of things and it just doesn't feel like things are getting better. Maybe you've gone to a lot of therapy, you've talked through your problems, but you're still stuck. You want more. You want to feel more at peace and more empowered. That's why Tyler and I have developed a process and a program for men to come experience something different, to shift out of the shame, shift out of the depression and the addiction, and to actually experience feeling alive, stepping into your masculinity, feeling empowered. If you want information about this experience, go to risingsunconference.com. Now that's Rising Sun as in S-O-N conference.com. Space is limited. The experience is going to change your life. It's going to shift you into the man that you really are, the man that God made. So go check it out, and we'll love to see you guys there.